All right, we're live.
All right, guys, we are live. This is the Shillin' and Duffy recap show being brought to you by Sherdog.com on the Sherdog YouTube page. We are sponsored by BetMGM. Make sure you use the promo code Sherdog when you sign up for a new account. You'll get a great bonus. We are recapping UFC Vegas. It's 54.
It is 54.
Yeah, I always mess up on that. UFC Blachowicz versus Rakic. I am your host. My name is Keith Schillen. Joining me as always is the senior editor of Sherdog.com, the great Ben Duffy. Ben, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing all right. We got a few things to talk about. One thing that we talk about on a regular basis is when the UFC has these fight night cards, they will alternate between doing an early ish card that starts kind of mid afternoon in North America versus one that starts late. And this one in particular, as it became a short card, just an 11 fight card, I was hoping they'd make it one of the early ones, but instead it was a late card. So we're talking at the same time we normally talk, even though it was just 11 fights. And they crammed, I say that ironically, 5 fights into a 2.5 hour undercard, which means I saw a lot of McDonald's commercials. Like my real like bull tonight is that girl from the McDonald's commercial that stayed rail thin despite apparently eating at McDonald's like every single day for 30 years. But anyway, I'm off topic. Let's talk about the main event.
Yeah, so it is late. It's a little after 1 a.m. here on the East Coast in the United States. Obviously, it's even later if you're in Europe or other parts of the world. Shout out to everybody in the chat. The chat is already jumping. I see a lot of our regulars. We try to talk as much, interact with the chat as much as possible. The only thing we ask is if everyone just be as respectful as possible with each other. That's what we like to do here. We don't have anybody calling each other name calling if they scored a fight differently. We're all kind of peaceful here. So we got 11 fights as you mentioned. I I don't mind recapping a pay per view at 1 o'clock in the morning, but like a kind of shitty fight night card didn't have a lot of big names on it. I'm not too excited for. I would have much liked this at 7 o'clock. And I'm thinking the reason why it started later is is it they're trying to get like Poland like early Sunday morning? Is that what they were thinking? Like, or like instead of being like 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, they try like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. Is that what we're thinking
Well, I
for the
mean,
main event?
you got Poland, Austria, and Serbia, like Rakic's country where he lives and the one, where ethnically he's from,
Sure.
all kind of in that same time zone. So maybe they're just trying to catch breakfast time in Central Europe. I don't know. I really don't. It's
Yeah. Is the Polish fans more likely to get up early in the morning, or that so area get up early in the morning than it is stay up late? I don't know. I don't understand the thinking. I don't know if it has something to do with NBA playoffs or hockey or something like that. I don't it could be. I don't know. Um, but let's talk about. We have 11 fights in the main event. We had former UFC light heavyweight champion Jan Blachowicz returning for the first time since losing his title to Connecticut's own Glover Teixeira as he took on Alexander Rakic. Uh, I'll say this: I like to pat myself on the back when I have a good night. This was not one of them. I did absolutely terrible. I went 5-6 on my picks.
whew.
How'd you make up?
Oh man, I'd have to count, but I think I went like 6 and 5. I might have gone six and
Okay,
five instead of 5 and 6.
okay. So I don't know the last time I actually had a losing record, but here it is. I picked Alexander Rakic. So let's get right to the very end. The very end of the fight, Alexander Rakic tries to avoid a strike from Jan Blachowicz, steps back, looks like his knee blows out. Obviously, I know I can speak for both me and Ben. We hope, obviously, this will be a recovery. We hope it's something minor. I hope it was a pulled meniscus or something that's not major. I'm not a doctor by any means, uh, but I fear that it's pretty. It's something bad. It looks like a torn ACL to me.
Yeah. It's it's yeah, just from the way he went down, there's no way it was not something at least fairly serious. And obviously, we can make all the jokes like, wow, the Polish power is so legendary that it like snaps the leg that he wasn't kicking. But obviously, that all plays into it because as you start switching stances, as you start favoring that leg, it is putting more stress on the other leg. I mean, I don't know if you or anyone in the chat, like if you've ever had to use a cane or a crutch for any appreciable amount of time, maybe you sprained an ankle or sprained a knee, the other leg like starts to hurt really quick just from having to compensate
Yeah, yeah,
for the one that you're trying to protect. So, I mean,
sure.
I see a certain number of accusations being thrown out there in the chat. All I'll say to that is it will never surprise me to hear that an MMA fighter was on performance enhancing substances, regardless of whether they were built like Tarzan or not, like Rakic is. And yes, connective tissue injuries like ligaments and tendons are often, victims in that regard because you can build your muscles with steroids, but not your ligaments and your tendons. So again, it wouldn't surprise me, but it's nothing conclusive. I'll say the same thing I always say. Your favorite fighter is on steroids.
Yeah, I'll never accuse anybody of being on steroids. Just plain simple. I won't do it without really, really hard evidence. I won't do that. If I like blow my nose, guys, I'm sorry. It was a rough day with the allergies today, so I'm trying to bear through it. Yeah, you mentioned the kicks. Blachowicz, especially in the first round, was really attacking the calf kick. Are you crediting him with? If you had to guess, obviously it's unfair question, but if you had to guess, would you say it was damage from Blachowicz that led to that, or do you think I'm kind of favoring the other way? I think it's just one of these freak injuries. Things shit happens, and when athletes move fast, shit happens.
Officially, because I was doing the play-by-play for Sherdog because our buddy Jay Petrie was out for the second half of the evening. We recorded it as TKO knee injury, whereas if the other leg had buckled, we would have been like TKO leg kicks. But in my mind, I think Blachowicz at least brought this about and made it happen, even if he doesn't get official
Okay,
credit for it. Like he
which is very possible.
Rakic adjust the way he stood and fought and kicked and punched from about 90 seconds in. And yeah, like just he at least created the situation where that was most likely, like something like that was most likely to happen.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't think anyone would really know. Obviously, Rakic is going to say it's just a freak thing. It very well could be that if it was Sean O'Malley would have claimed he won. He was. So yeah, I'm okay with anybody who thinks it's just a sucky situation because if it was the other leg that he kicked and he kept kicking and then he kicked the left leg and then his left leg buckled, we'd be saying, wow, what an unbelievable finish, leg kicks, the Polish power, so smart. That's what happens when you kick out the legs. Kind of the way we looked at Davey Grant. We'll get to that later. How he took out Louis Smolka. Louis Smolka, he was kicking the leg. And then he just you saw his entire leg buckle when he kicked it. And because of that, I feel like we don't have answers now. Like, is Blachowicz back? Is this the vintage power? Like, it's gonna get a lot of that. Really? Thoughts?
Well, the biggest shame of all, and a couple people have mentioned this in the chat, is that it was developing into a really interesting fight. Like both guys had each other in a lot of trouble, and there was like both guys had the other in serious trouble of just kind of maybe the fight starting to go downhill and get stopped right then. But also, Rakic's leg was getting lumped up. Meanwhile, Blachowicz had this nasty cut that was clearly bothering him, and so I was so looking forward to the next 2.5 rounds of that fight, and we all lost out on that. I agree that we didn't see enough to know whether Blachowicz is back in terms of championship level performance, but I saw enough to convince me that he is better than the guy who lost to Glover Teixeira. I mean, he stood in there for 2.5 rounds. I'm not saying he hasn't slowed. He's 39, but all of his tools were in place.
Sure.
He wasn't gassed out after 4 minutes of fighting. Yeah, I don't know if I favor him against Teixeira, but I at least want to see it.
Yeah, that I agree with a lot of things you said there. He still looks sharp, especially on the feet. He still shows some power at one point. I think the commentary team sold it a little bit more, but at one point he caught Rakic with a nice shot in the first round, and the commentary team made it sound like Rakic was ice skating out there, which wasn't the case. But yeah, he still looks sharp. Some good calf kicks, good speed. So good, actually good, just counter striking like he's always done. So yeah, there was definitely a lot to like. My one concern, and this is where I kind of put a pause, and I'm kind of being a little chicken. I'm like you're saying like, hey, he's better than the guy who lost to Glover Teixeira, and I'm not going either way. I'm not saying like, hey, he's declined, he's done, but I'm also not saying like, hey, this guy, he could be the champion again. Well, hold on, let me rephrase that. He definitely can be the champion again. He still, even in 2.5 minutes, he still showed he's one of the best light heavyweights. To be in a back and forth fight with a guy like Alexander Rakic, regardless of how it ends, he showed that. But the concern I have is the second round. He got taken down, and once again, he struggled to get up from bottom.
Yep.
And Rakic obviously has a little bit of grappling, but he's not known for his grappling like Glover Teixeira, who currently holds the title.
No.
That is what concerns me.
Glover Teixeira is, I mean, probably the heaviest top position grappler in the 205-pound division in the UFC. Like, that's the one thing that
I agree.
He could be 50 and he'll still have that.
Yeah, absolutely. He's one of the greatest grapplers in the history of the sport. Regardless of what
I agree. If you take in the whole package, like positional soundness, ground and pound, submissions, enough wrestling to get the fight to the mat, because we'll talk about it later, I'm sure, but like it all has to run on you being able to get the fight there. This isn't BJJ where everyone assumes it's going to end up there. So, but yeah, I would absolutely say he's one of the greatest in the history of the sport.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. And obviously, we're talking about him versus Glover Teixeira. Glover Teixeira has a fight again, and it's the next pay-per-view against Yuri Prochazka. The commentary team made it sound like it's pretty much a done deal. Jan Blachowicz is fighting the next for the title. I'm going to have some comments about that in a little bit, but who's a better matchup for him?
I think... Honestly, I think probably Teixeira. Like, even though Teixeira blew through him last time, and even if Blachowicz is better than that performance, it's still the same style matchup. I have to think that Teixeira is going to lose a step eventually here, whereas Prochazka, I think Prochazka would just run through Blachowicz like a buzzsaw.
Really? I don't think either one runs through him, but I see what you're saying. My one counterpoint would be is if he's fighting Glover Teixeira, then he didn't decline. That means Glover Teixeira take on another top contender.
That's true. But
But again, it's when you're 40 years old, and obviously Blachowicz, it can go both guys. Either guy could just out of the blue just be done.
Like, I mean, Prochazka's style, it's not built to last. Like, this fun ride is going to come to an end soon. But right now,
Absolutely.
he is what the UFC hoped Johnny Walker would be. Because he is wild.
Yes.
His fights are exciting. He gets hit. Like, he definitely gets hit in his fights. He takes damage. But he puts out more damage, and the other guy falls down. Like, it's like a light heavyweight Tony Ferguson. Like, he's just a monster. And just Blachowicz's durability and gas tank, like, they're just not built to take that at this point.
Yeah, I like the comparisons to Tony Ferguson. They fight a little different, but it's that like creativeness to them.
Yeah.
Like you don't know what they're gonna throw out. I love how someone described Tony Ferguson like, how can you guess what he's gonna throw out? He doesn't know what he's throwing. I forget who said that, but it was really good. Obviously, we're not gonna get in too much into Glover Teixeira versus Yuri Prochazka, as we'll be breaking that fight down in a couple weeks. Predict right now, and this is not our matchmaking. Does Jan Blachowicz fight for the title next? Sorry, not his next fight, but the next person to fight for the title. Is it Jan Blachowicz?
Yeah, well, definitely. I think it's very likely if Teixeira beats Prochazka, because Teixeira has been calling for it all night. And again, I think champs can and do and should get a certain amount of latitude if there are a number of deserving challengers. If Prochazka wins, I don't know. All bets are off. But it helps Blachowicz that there's nobody else really jumping out there and making a great case for himself right now.
Yeah, that's the biggest argument. I really think it's wide open. And because of that, I will agree with you and say that Blachowicz will be. I'm not saying he should be. It seems like the chat is very sold, and it usually comes down to the way the commentators speak. They've already been told in the back what agenda to push. They wanted to make it sound like this was a number one contender matchup. The fact that they were posting Glover Teixeira's tweet on the broadcast, I don't know if you caught that, like on that little corner where they show people's Adam Martin's comment and Aaron Bronstedter's comment and something like that. They did that with Glover Teixeira. But what if, to me, like, all right, so let's see what I'll do. I'll give my matchup, and then we'll talk about it a little bit more. But I want somebody else fighting for the title. I just want a new face. I want a new matchup.
Then your buddy has a 4-guard all the way around, and his name is Magomed Ankalaev.
Yeah. Well, he's got a tough fight because I'm saying he's matched already against Anthony Smith. I'm probably doing the winner of that.
There you go. I mean, it would be such a shame if Yuri Prochazka won the UFC light heavyweight title and they just immediately put him against Magomed Ankalaev. I want to have more fun than that before the Ankalaev era starts.
Yeah, I agree. But you know what? Let's not count out Anthony Smith because it seems so many times that guy's been counted out. And honestly, what a great story that would be if he ever an unlikely guy to even make it to the UFC, unlikely guy to get a run to the title, gets trashed in the championship. Looks like he has no chance, and then he rides himself back after taking some losses after he lost the title to a title shot and wins the title. That'd be a really, I mean, it's not Glover Teixeira level of story, but it'd be up there for a nice story.
Yeah, it would. The division.
So this is what I'm doing.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Good. So this is what I'm doing. I'm doing the winner of Smith Ankalaev. To me, Blachowicz didn't do enough. Like it's to me, it was just a matter of circumstances. Like it's not his fault that Rakic knee blew out. It could very well be. Well, it could be his fault in the good sense. Like he did it. I'm leaning more of it's just a freak thing that happened, and he's just a what's the word I'm looking for? He's a victim of circumstances.
Sure.
And I'm giving Smith versus Ankalaev the winner of that one. And I'm gonna have like Blachowicz facing the winner of Paul Craig and Volkan Oezdemir, and like the next match, like the next one line.
Oh man. Off topic, we don't want to go there, but if Paul Craig beats Volkan Oezdemir, he is officially the weirdest, most unlikely top 5 light heavyweight of all time.
It might be. Yeah, it might be the weirdest top 5 fighter in history. Thank you for guys who are donating to the chat. That's really cool, you guys. Thank you, Prop Sniper. I think that's what that was. That was popping up on my screen. Yeah. I just want Paul Craig to do it because how fun is Paul Craig?
It'd be something.
Yeah. I don't want to do matchmaking with Rakic. Is normally we do the matchmaking with both guys. It just who knows when we see this guy again now. If it's as bad as it looked like it's going to be.
That looked to me like we are lucky if we see him in the first quarter of 2023 type injury.
Yeah, I agree.
There's no way that's less than 6 months.
Yeah, like only Tony Ferguson comes back in like 4 months after like a torn ACL. And then we have to ask yourself, what kind of damage did he do? I mean, Tony Ferguson has not been the same fighter. Higher low 1,000 says Rakic has some matchmaking with Dr. Andrews. Yeah, nice. That was a good line. I also like higher low asking Prof Sniper is that pesos. All right. Should we move on? Because unfortunately, because of the fight ending like that, we don't have too much to talk about.
Yeah, like that's it. Just
Let's do this actually real quick. We'll throw this out the chat. Um, I didn't take your. Are you doing Blachowicz for the title next? Is that your plan?
I
I
am.
know I asked you if the UFC's gonna do it, but what would you do? And throw it out to the chat. You guys tell us is what's next for Blachowicz.
Honestly, I would probably make Blachowicz fight someone else before he gets a title shot. That just it wasn't definitive enough. You can make the argument
Yeah.
that until the moment it ended, Rakic kind of had the momentum. So like that feels rough to award him a title shot based off of that. So yeah, I'd probably make him fight someone else. The winner of Smith versus Ankalaev works for me. The loser of Teixeira versus Prohaska works for me. So yeah, like if Prohaska beats Teixeira, and then like he rematches Blachowicz and Blachowicz beats him this time, that makes a good case that hey, Blachowicz is ready for a title shot. So yeah.
Yeah, it seemed like a lot of the guys in the chat are going the same way. Tapper Snap saying title shot. Bass is saying title shot because he's old. That honestly, you do have to take that into consideration. You do have it's. I know Bass is making a little joke with that, but it is something that you only have a small window. That's why I always say, like, when you got like a Diaz brother willing to fight, make the most marketable fight you can do, because who knows when you're going to get them to the table to negotiate again. I mean, you might get them outside taking a piss in the bushes, but getting them to the table is a different thing. Yep. So yeah, I know he was joking. Technical Wealth says feed Reyes to Jan again. I don't know what Technical Wealth has against Dominic Reyes, who needs a softball, but instead he wants to get him against the Polish Power. Kyle says he would do Jan versus Yuri if Yuri wins. If Glover wins, I would do Smith or Ankalaev. That's actually something I thought about, and I like your thinking that, because then there is a kind of a new face, and it's not the same rematch. So I know Glover and Jan are trying to match themselves up, but yeah, I like what Kyle's thinking. That works for me. So, the co-main event was also a light heavyweight fight, as we had Ryan Spann taking on Ian Cutelaba. Ian Cutelaba was winning every moment of this fight until he wasn't.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, Spann did two cool things. Like, he landed just a beautiful long straight right hand as the first strike of the fight. He kicked Cutelaba off of him so hard that like the dude went flying across the cage. But that's pretty much it for bright spots for Spann until he got the choke. But I will say this, for a performance where, yeah, again, he was basically losing the entire fight up until the point where he won it, there were encouraging things to take away from it. Because my whole thought was, oh man, if the takedowns are this effortless for Cutelaba, this is going to be a short and ugly night of work for Spann. But after the third time, he was like, okay, I know he's going to reshoot immediately. I'm going to be ready for it this time. He like pancakes like the takedown from the outside and like locks up that guillotine and fast. So, it's not like he lucked into the finish.
Yeah, absolutely. No, because that's Spann's go-to. That's kind of his move.
Yeah.
He's really good at it. So yeah, I wasn't saying it. And honestly, this is what Cutelaba does. Cutelaba, he overextended on a shot. He missed himself, like put himself in that position, and Spann took it. And of course, like I'm almost saying he was winning every minute of the fight. What was it? It was like a 2-minute fight. So it's not like you can't take away too much from that. I just want to point out that Spann didn't have much offense, but Spann's now 6-2 in the UFC.
He's 6-2 in the UFC. His losses
we can't ignore that.
His losses are to good people. One of them was controversial. Johnny Walker hit him in the back of the head a million times. Like, to the point where it's not like, oh, it might have played into it. He like literally finished him with strikes to the back of the head. Like, Spann.
Yeah.
I said this on the preview. I was like, why do I keep thinking of this guy as a busted prospect? He's 5-2 in the UFC. Now he's 6-2. And while I agree, it's not like some kind of steamrolling that makes me go, all right, top 10 guys for Ryan Spann from now on. You know what? We just talked about Paul Craig being a potential title contender, and he's another guy that he's losing the fight a lot of the time until he wins it. Like,
yeah,
you look at Spann, and he's one of the most physically imposing guys in the division, just in
He's
terms of his
huge.
size, in terms of the things he can do athletically. Just, you asked as a joke once a year ago if we thought Paul Craig at 6'4" can dunk a basketball. There's no question of whether Ryan Spann can dunk a basketball. He might be able to dunk one flat-footed. Like, but just the things he can do. Like, he's not a polished striker, but his hand speed is uncoachable. His reach is uncoachable.
Yeah.
Like, Saif Saud yells at him, you either got to submit him or get back up. And 3 seconds later, Ryan puts his feet on Kudalaba's hips and kicks this 225-pound guy so hard that he goes flying across the cage.
Yeah.
Like, it looks like something we used to do in, like, wrestling practice as, like, jokes, like, for fun, and, like, when we're goofing off.
Me and my old, like, my, when you were at wrestling, you have, like, a one main training partner. And we used to, when you used to do the dual meets, you'd run out when I was in high school. Me and this guy, we used to do with these, warming up. We do these great, huge throwing moves to each other. The other guy would jump into it and exaggerate to kind of psych up your opponents you're going against. But that wasn't like he, like, legit just kicked him across the room like I could kick a kindergartner.
Yeah. Like,
let me ask you this, and obviously this is just, there's not too many fights to talk too much about. So we talked about the title picture and how many phone calls until they call Ryan Spann. And what I mean by that, if you haven't watched this before, we say if something happens, Yuri Prochazka gets knocked out. No, Prochazka got out. The UFC has to get someone in there. They pick up the phone. They call. First call they call Blachowicz. Sorry, I can't make weight. And Clyde, oh, sorry, I'm hurt. Like, how many down the line until you call Ryan Spann?
I think probably 10, 8 or 10.
Really?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Like, even Dominic Reyes is getting a call before Ryan Spann is, and he's on, like, a 3-fight losing streak. Dude, former title challengers have a quicker road back, but, like, I mean, you at least...
He's lost like 3 in a row, though.
At least you're getting both the guys from this main event. You're getting Ankalaev. You're getting Smith. I think you'd probably get to 8 or so before you get to Spann. Like, Paul Craig's getting the call first. Anthony Smith is getting the call first.
Yeah, Smith, Ankalaev, Spann. I'm sorry, Smith, Ankalaev, Blachowicz.
Smith, Ankalaev, Blachowicz.
Craig. Technical well said they call Paulo Costa. They actually might call Paulo Costa first. Actually, I definitely think that's
is getting the call.
Volkan Oezdemir. Yeah, I actually think you're right. I think they would call like middleweights and stuff.
Yeah. Dude,
Jamal Hill, there's another
Santos,
one.
Like someone like Thiago Santos would get the call. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you guys are right. I was thinking like 4 or 5, but yeah, I think you guys are right. I think it's 7 or 8, 9, 10 deep before they call Ryan Spann. Even though he had a moment of crazy Kudalaba, I still like this wrestling Kudalaba. I still think that's his best avenue of victories moving forward.
I agree. He still has some of the same problems he always did. For a guy who is as athletic as he is, because, discussed this on the preview, whatever, like hilarious 2006 Goldie stereotypes we may be talking about, Ion Kudalaba is the more explosive and athletic guy of those two.
Yeah.
Which
is crazy when you just said that that Spann kicked him across the cage.
Yeah. For all the things that he can do, and he has a bunch of individually very good skill sets, and he doesn't, I don't think he's the same guy anymore that just literally brain farted that first fight against Ankalaev away, but he still throws everything way too hard, which, 1, it's going to get him pieced up against a more composed striker, and 2, it's going to make his gas tank a problem every time out, and he's just not that creative. Like, he went back to the well with that same shot just too many times, and, like, Spann caught him. Like,
well, he threw that overhand right trying to get Spann coming up, but he just like knocked himself over. He overthrew it.
Yeah.
And then Spann just jumped on the neck. I think Kudalaba could be like the light sparring when you're like warm up. Hey, we'll just do some light sparring. Like Kudalaba might be a killer in light sparring. What I mean by that is now you're only doing like 50%, 40%. Like 40% Kudalaba is be pretty damn good because that's what he needs to fight.
Yeah.
Like Kudalaba needs to fight at like 40%. Like do everything just 40%, and he'd make a lot less mistakes.
Agreed.
Either he just falls down a little bit slower. I don't know.
He's the kind of guy that he might just mature or might just find the right team or something and just turn things around and be an absolute world beater in a couple of years. He's still so young. Isn't he like 28 or 29
Yeah,
still? He's got all the time in the world. We're talking about a 39-year-old maybe fighting a 43-year-old for the title like this September or October. You know what I mean?
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, we were if we were doing the show back when Jan Blachowicz was getting easily out wrestled,
Yeah.
we might be throwing him on the cut list before. So yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, Glover Share, I quit on Glover Share 5 years ago.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to mention, I don't know if you saw the pre-interviews, like the media day. Dude, Ryan Spann was like, I don't know what he was doing, but he was like refusing to answer any questions. I shout out to all the media members there who were trying. I mean, John Morgan asked him like rephrase questions like 7 different ways to try to get any response out of him. Like, dude, don't go like, I want to thank Jesus for this victory, and then you're like kind of a dick to everybody at the media day. I think Jesus would be a little nicer at the media day than that.
Gotta love God and love your neighbor. And your neighbor is the guy with the microphone and the pale blue shirt standing in front of you.
And nobody was throwing gotcha questions. I don't get it. Like, I've seen people be angry and kind of like not like the media.
Yeah.
But damn, bro.
You know what? I don't know this for a fact, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if that was a little bit of weight cut saltiness.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
some guys.
Yeah, which is
There's some guys that
yeah,
are just really grouchy during fight week because they are thirsty and they are hungry and they're anxious because they have more weight to lose than they thought they were going to have to, and the last thing they want is to answer the same 6 or 7 questions. I'm not excusing it, but I'm saying that might be what it is because Span other times, I mean, he's been okay, and
yeah,
this time he was just really not there. So
yeah. That's a good point. That's a good point. But you know what? In fairness, Jesus spent 40 days in the desert without eating. And he was still nicer to the devil than Ryan Spann was to John Morgan. I'm
I
not
agree.
saying I mean, John Morgan might be more evil than the devil. I don't know. Maybe that's what it is.
I think John Morgan is the devil. You heard it here first.
That's it. It could be. We could be breaking ground.
Yeah.
Davey Grant versus Louis Smolka was an absolute action-packed fight. But I want to ask you something. Obviously, I knew it was going to be action-packed. It lived up exactly. It gave you what they wanted. Does that excuse UFC from having it on the main card?
No.
Because you had ranked fighters buried down in the prelims.
No, it was a weird choice for the main card. And again, we're talking about an ESPN main card. So there's no reason other than to just put the fights in order of their relevance. You're not trying to entice people into spending $75. You're not saving anything for that part of the card. You might as well just like, well, hell, you might as well do it like a wrestling duel meet and just go from the lightest fighters to the heaviest ones. Like,
Yeah, I know.
like,
Yeah.
no, I thought it was weird.
Yeah. So, yeah, the only thing I can think of is they still think that if some fan is flipping through TV and they stop on an action fight, they watch it for a couple seconds, they just become MMA fans. But 90% of people go, "Oh, that was fun,"
Yep.
and then they just scroll on. The commercial goes. They might not even finish that fight. Like, "Oh, that was a fun round," and then they scroll on. Like, there's very few people that actually continue to watch. I mean, I've been at a bar where you're kind of watching a fight, and then you hear somebody like, "Oh shit!" And they start watching it for a couple seconds, they get excited, and then they go back to talking and kicking it to some girl or whatever.
Yeah.
That said, I want to go back to Dev Goes Fishing comment. Davey Grant is a shit. Davey Grant is really becoming one of my favorite fighters. Like, Davey Grant will never be a top contender. He'll never be up there. I mean, he said, "I still want to be the champion" or something like that. Davey Grant's not gonna be a champion. Like, well, he goes good Cage Warriors, maybe, or something, bare knuckle boxing. But God, is this guy fun? Just throwing these looping Fedor Emelianenko style hooks over and over again, landing really accurate, and just nonstop. Like, how he can just throw power hooks for the entire fight is just so much fun. I love this guy.
It's not to his own best stylistic or strategic advantage. And the funny thing is, when his first few fights in the UFC, he was not this lights out striker. He was kind of a one-dimensional gimmicky submission artist. I think it's funny that he's turned into this. And yeah, he's fighting like a guy that's fighting for bonus checks. Like, he can say all the right things about, I want to be the champ one day, but I mean, we saw what happens when he takes on an actual guy that's headed in that trajectory, because Adrian Yanez
Yeah.
messed him up. Like, dude,
Yeah.
as fun as Grant is, Sean O'Malley would have a highlight for the ages at this man's expense.
Absolutely.
Probably in the first round.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And a lot, all the top contenders at that division. I want to point out something that Tapper Snap said is a good point. Davey Grant used to be a grappler. Like, that's what he was known for. And now he's this knockout artist who just throws these looping shots. And I think he's got like 3 or 4 knockouts, 3 out of his last 5 fights, or something like that. 3 out of 4, something like that. Like, it's been like, I was ready to put Davey Grant on the cut list, like 5 or 6, like when he just turned everything around 5 or 6 fights ago, like thinking, all right, this is the last time we see Davey Grant. And now I can't get enough of Davey Grant.
Boss said that Smolka is washed. I can understand where you're coming from with that.
He is.
Well, I'm not even sure that's.
I 100% agree. You're not going to convince me otherwise.
Oh. Well, I was.
But please try to.
I was only going to make the case.
It's that who's the guy who sets up his little table, says change my mind, but like there's nothing that someone will say, oh, this is going to change the guy's mind.
I've even used him to make cover art for my articles before.
Like,
I made one that said like CM Punk belongs in the UFC. Changed my mind. No, I can't remember his name now.
But, yeah, he's wicked famous. Yeah. But yeah, that's me. You're not gonna change my mind. But good. I'll pretend that I'm gonna let you try.
My counterpoint was just gonna be, he was never that good, and he actually looked better than I expected tonight.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I still think he's shot.
At 30, he's taken a lot of damage. He's had a couple of lengthy layoffs due to injury, so I certainly don't think he's getting any better from here, but he was as good a version of Louis Smolka as I've seen in the cage in 5 years. He's Louis Smolka. I thought he was going to get knocked out in the first round. Like, I picked him to get knocked out in the first round. I thought I was looking pretty accurate on that after about 3 minutes, but he survived. He won the second round. He did it by making adjustments, which, hey, like, he realized things were not taking place in his preferred kickboxing range, so he starts going to like level elbows in close range. Hit Grant a few times, gave something to think about. Like, it wasn't that bad.
He's Louis Smolka. He's Hawaiian, right?
Yeah.
He's gonna be fighting for Bellator on one of the Hawaiian cards soon.
I think you're probably right.
And like he'll be fighting for the title, like Bellator or something. Like Bellator's gonna try to make him into some big star. Yeah. Like they tried making like Yancy Medeiros into a star.
And oh man, bantamweight is not the division to do that. Could you imagine him fighting like Patchy Mix or Raufeon Stotts?
No. Oh God. Kyle Lahe says Smoker versus Boom Boom, Brian Kelleher. That actually would be kind of fun fight. I think Brian Kelleher would. I think Kelleher would starch him.
Yeah,
but
agreed.
But I think it would be kind of fun. I love the adjustment that, like you mentioned that Smoker made an adjustment, and then Davey Grant made an adjustment in the third, where his corner pointed at us, said, "Dude, go to the calf kicks," and he went to the calf kicks, tore him up, and then finished him with the calf kicks.
Yep.
I want to see more Davey Grant. So somebody, Dev mentioned the kind of favoring the UK market. That could have been a reason why he's up there.
Yeah.
It could have been a time thing again, where they're trying to get some Europeans later, so it's early in the morning. Could have been a Hawaii thing, like they're 6 hours behind. Maybe they're trying to get in it somewhat, a little later for there, so it'd be like 4 in the afternoon or something. I don't know. Or it could have just been like, we want some action. Before that, Caitlin, this is the one that Twitter was going crazy over. Caitlin Chikagian took on Amanda Hebos as Amanda Hebos moved up to flyweight in a very different fight for Caitlin Chikagian. I was entertained in a Caitlin Chikagian fight.
Hey, I picked Amanda Hebos to win, and I said the reason she's going to win is that she is not going to stand there and take the Caitlin Chikagian fight. She is going to force the issue. Like, she's not going to let Chikagian throw jabs at air and yell key eyes for 15 minutes. Like, she's going to get in her face. And you know what? Even though I didn't get the pick right. She lost by split decision. I scored it for Chikagian, so like I'm not even salty about that. I still feel good about the pick because what I predicted came to pass. She was interface. She threw her with the headlock throw, in the first and second rounds, spent good time on top. Just she reminded us why Chikagian is so good at the snake charmer thing. Because when people do get into that range, they get busted the hell up. Caitlin Chikagi is a very, very skilled striker and deceptively powerful. Like, Hebus just kept running into the same 1-2
She's
over
a
and
big
over again.
woman.
Yeah,
she's a big woman.
She's big.
So,
and she has the natural power that comes from throwing with decent technique. Like it was the same jab and right cross over and over again, but it was busting Hebus's face up.
Yeah. So we had it completely opposite. So I picked Caitlin Chikagian, but I actually scored it for Hebus. I scored a 29-20 for Hebus. I gave Hebus the first, and I gave her the third.
See, I almost gave her the third. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm looking at she had a takedown. She didn't have much top control, but it was like a back and forth stand-up, and I thought she was being aggressive. I thought she was landing the better shots. I'm looking at the chat, and it's like 50-50 split. Like some people gave it for Caitlin Chikagian. Some people gave it to Amanda Hebus. Bobby Boucher gave it 29-28 Chikagian. Bass gave it 29-28 Hebus. Technical Wealth says 29-28. I'm not sure who he said. Likewise, I don't know if he's responding to Bobby with Chikagian, or I don't know if he's responding to Bass. Kyle gave it to Hebus. So back and forth. I looked on MMA Decisions. MMA Decisions wasn't as back and forth. It was 12-2 for Caitlin Chikagian, with only me and Marcel Doff scoring it for Hebus. Me and Marcel Doff has been scoring a lot similar cards recently. Me and him got a lot of hate for giving, and I still can't believe I'm getting hate for this. The Logan Storley, I thought Logan Storley clearly won. I thought it was an easy fight to score, but and that's like 50-50 again too. But we got a lot of hate for that, and both me and Marcel scored it for Logan Storley over MVP. But back to this fight. What I want to talk about is what you said about I feel like there's an avenue for victory, and Jessica Andrade showed it. And Jessica Andrade Jessica Andrade is one of those people like, this is how you beat Caitlin Chikagian, but who else can do that but Jessica Andrade? Who else can get inside like her, walk through punches, stay in your face? Hebus did it. I thought she did, but close enough. But the whole point is that's how you have to fight Caitlin Chikagian. There's no doubt about it. You have to rush her. You can't stay on the outside. Who else in the division can do that though? Besides Valentina Shevchenko.
Can Aaron Blanchfield do it? Can Manon Fiorot do it?
I don't know. Those are two good names. She called for a fight for Manon Fiorot.
Well,
Manon Fiorot called for a fight with her.
Chick.
Yeah, that French chick. and Manon Fiorot called for a fight with her. I'll do it. Like, I'm matching them next.
I like that it reflects that Chookagian understands her place. Like, she knows that she's the second best woman in the division, or at least, by what's been demonstrated she is. But she's going to have to do a hell of a lot to secure another title shot as long as Valentina Shevchenko is the champ. So she knows she's going to have to fight the number 9 woman, even though she's number 2. It's in her best interest, and it's at least part of the reason the UFC re-signed her. So, yeah, I like that. I like anytime a higher-ranked fighter recognizes the practical value in taking a lower-ranked matchup. So I'm all for it.
See, so Dev says, based on MMA scoring criteria in 2022, it's a Chikagian win. I've been hearing a lot of people, a lot of discussion on the criteria of scoring. I think that argument's much better for the MVP. Like, Caitlin laid some good shots. So did Hebus. Like, to me, this is why I scored it for Hebus. To me, there was nothing Caitlin did that Hebus didn't do back. Like, the volume was about the same, the damage was about the same, the power was about the same. Like, the power shots were the same. Like, I didn't like. Yeah, if you gave it to Caitlin Chikagian, I got no issue with it. It was an extremely close fight. Like, I'm okay with that. But I'm just surprised that the ones who did give it. It's what I've noticed is so many people are like, so on the fence. Like I saw people on Twitter saying the other way, like, "Oh my God, there's no way Hebas lost that fight." I'm like, "Well, really? Like, I gave it to Hebas, but that's about as close as they come."
Mm-hmm.
I just can't imagine. So I don't like Caitlin Chikagan. I don't like her style of fighting. I don't. The person, she's fine. She seems like a sweetheart. But I'm talking about like the fighter. I can't imagine hating Caitlin Chikagan even more if she beats Manon Farrell, because you know how much I love Manon Farrell.
Yeah.
Like I might move to France for her. Like just because I'm that big of a fan. Like I just want to I want to support my hometown girl.
you can claim her for Rhode Island if you need to.
Yeah, there's like northern Rhode Island, like Woonsocket area is French. It has a French background, so Manon Farrell moved to Woonsocket, and I can back you. Hivas obviously would go back down. I mean, she did good. I mean, like she saw how close she is to being the number one contender at flyweight, but strawweight, is that still the best weight class for her? Or would you think because of how successful she was against Caitlin Chikagan, maybe a little speed thing going on for her at flyweight might be a better move?
It depends on what she wants. I mean, she is probably a better fighter in a vacuum at 115. Just like she is plus size and strength at 115, where she's probably not at 125. But the thing is, 115, the title picture, all 5 women that have ever held that title are circling like hijacked jets at an airport. Like if she stays at 125, she might actually win her way to a title shot faster.
Yeah, I agree. Let me ask you this question, and we're not going to go too far this, but Amanda Hebas fought Carlos Esparza next. Who wins?
I might favor Hebas actually.
Yeah,
Hebas
I don't
is bigger and stronger, and her judo is a good counter for Esparza's good old American wrestling. Like this is not someone that Esparza could just shoot double legs on and hold down for 12 out of 15 minutes.
Let me ask you this, and we're gonna get past this, but just for a second, is the answer always whoever's fighting Carlos Esparza? Like, is there going to be someone up in the top 5, 6 that you would say, nah, I think Carla beats her? I'm saying if we do this next week, if we do it with Joanna Jacek or Weili Zhang or whoever, is there someone you would take Carla right now?
I'd be interested to see her against Zhang. I'm not saying I'd favor her, but I'd be sneaky high on her chances there.
Yeah, we're not going to go too far. We talked about Carlos Esparza a lot. It just there might be some things good about having the champion there's more interest in the challengers. There might be some benefit to that.
Yeah.
Before that, another fight that everything I said about Lee Smoker versus Davey Grant is like ×2 for Frank Camacho versus Manuel Torres. Manuel making his UFC debut, taking on Frank Camacho, who's on a losing streak, hasn't fought in years. I have no idea why this fight was in the main card.
Nope.
Said, it was fun. Like exactly what we thought it was gonna be. It was fun.
It was fun, and Camacho looked okay until he didn't. But Torres like slipped that punch, blistered Camacho because he'd been hitting him hard the whole time. It just felt like kind of a matter of time, and just put him down.
Yeah. Torres was too fast for him, and honestly, I think it was Bass said that Louis Smoker has shot. Same with Frank Camacho. He not just like that he got put out and he's been put out a couple times. Like he wasn't reacting. He wasn't no head movement, and it seemed like every shot hit him was hurting him. Like we're just waiting for the moment for him to have it like go out.
Yeah. It's the same thing that I kind of said about Smolka. He's probably declining, but he was never that great to start with. I mean, he was 2-5 in the UFC, already.
Yeah, he mentioned that.
Yeah,
he mentioned that in the media day, and it's funny. Frank Camacho is like 180 opposite of Ryan Spann at the media day, like super likable, honest, big personality. But yeah, the guy just looks like a shot fighter.
Agreed.
Before that, a battle of prospects. This is one of the ones we kept telling people this is a close fight. that Jake Hadley is not way better than Alan Nascimento. Both of us were on it.
I picked Nascimento.
You did. So I was building up to you. Good call, man. Give yourself a pat on the back on that one.
You know what? I picked Nascimento. I thought he would be bigger and stronger, and that Hadley might not have the success that he had on the UK scene with just his kind of creative, wizardly grappling. I didn't expect it to be this bad, because by the end of the first round, when I saw how comfortable Jake Hadley was playing BJJ off his back, which is something
so
that you rail against, especially that's
frustrating.
Once I saw that, I'm like, not only did he lose this round, I don't think he's going to be able to make the adjustments, because the things that have carried him to this point, just being a better athlete and just kind of a supernaturally just instinctive grappler, they're not going to work against Alan Nascimento.
Mm-hmm.
The guy rolls with Charles de Bronx Oliveira 4 times a week. You've got nothing
Good
creative
point.
that he's going to, and yeah, just Nascimento was bigger, stronger, more positionally sound. They both got tired, but Hadley got more tired. He was really spent by the third round.
I think I'm the only person on the planet that actually believes that in some cases, now obviously not all cases, and not most cases, but in some cases, a fighter is better if they're a purple belt in BJJ than if they are a black belt in BJJ. And what I mean by that is they're not as confident on the ground, so they're getting up. They're not playing, let me play rubber guard and let me do all this stuff. I mean, how are you going to play rubber guard with a guy and not do anything, just get held down and lose?
Yep.
Very, very frustrating. But you know what? It's frustrating if you were a guy who backed Hadley and thought he had some promise. But really smart victory. Alan said, hey, I can win a wrestling match, and he turns it into a wrestling match.
That's pretty much it.
And I loved how he set up his takedowns, by the way. I love that Hadley was pressure. And we talked about this in his last fight against Mr. Proposal, the way he got taken down. When you always pressure, you walk right into takedowns. And Nascimento would back up, reactionary double. Just step, time him, takedown. Beautiful stuff. Smart.
Yep. It was a well put together game plan. And yeah, he was just the better fighter tonight. I still think Hadley has enormous upside, but
so do I.
But we don't know how much of that's going to be realized. The guy's 25 years old, and this was his first really tough fight.
He's got to struggle against wrestlers unless he makes a change. Any wrestler that has some kind of sub defense. Not talking about Mark Coleman style, but wrestler that has some kind of sub defense, he's going to struggle. He's going to be on his back, and it's going to look. There's going to be a lot of fights that look just like this. Yeah,
and I think Nascimento has probably been a little underrated as a prospect, just because he came to the UFC. One he lost on the Contender Series, so he came to the UFC. He already had 5 losses. He's a little old for a prospect. He's 30 now. But dude, his debut, he lost a split decision to Tagir Olambakov. I think Olambakov would handle Hadley. On the Contender Series,
absolutely.
He lost a split decision to Raulian Paiva. I think Raulian Paiva would handle Hadley.
Those are two good. Yeah, those are two good guys.
Yeah, they're both borderline top 15 guys. He's a really good fighter. And he's a 30-fight veteran, and he's 30 years old. He's not even really a prospect. He's just a potential contender who happens to be here now.
Yeah. Speaking of potential contenders, Andrew Lee took on Viviana Araujo in one of the more anticipated fights. Andrew Lee looked spectacular for the first 2.5, 3 minutes of the fight. She was bigger, she was quick. Dropped Araujo, almost knocked her out with this perfectly timed high kick as Araujo was coming up. A lot of people were shocked at how Araujo recovered. But when she did, she started at the end of the first round. She was struggling with Andrea Lee's range, and then she kind of got into her range, found it, started finding her speed, started tagging her on the feet, and then when the fight hit the ground, her pressure was, in my opinion, her pressure in the first round was getting Andrea to kind of panic a little bit late, and that's when Andrea threw that really ugly takedown.
Yeah. And
then when Araujo spun behind her, she beat the brakes off her after that. It was. I gave her a 10-8 round in the second.
Yeah. So did I. I wasn't officially scoring it by then, but I definitely saw it as a 10-8 round. Yeah, just laid a walloping on her. Like, I think Lee probably had a little bit of an advantage in just sheer strength, horsepower. Like, I'm sure if you put those two women in the gym, she like puts up more on the bench press or squat. But
Sure.
Araujo's just functional power once they were on the ground. I mean, especially as Lee got more and more tired, she was just kind of throwing her around at will and then just beating her up, just throwing nasty like hooks from behind on both sides. Yeah, it was a mauling on the ground.
I was so impressed by Araujo's control. Like there was one point where she had Andrea Lee's back and she was a little high. Um, Andrea Lee was like trying to pyramid up and like kind of shake her off. And to see how Araujo was still able to keep that, there was like 2 minutes left in the round, and she was still able to keep that position and not lose it, and actually like flatten Andrea Lee out later. I was really really impressed. She's really well rounded. I've been back in Araujo for a while now. I'm sold on her. Do I think she'll ever win the title? No, but I think she's a tough matchup for almost anybody in the division. I really believe that. Which is pretty crazy for a girl who's probably undersized for the division.
She does look just a tiny bit undersized for the division, you know, and she's 35, so there's a kind of limited window
Absolutely.
of time in which she can get this
Yeah,
done. But she's
that's a
going
good
to get
point.
the chance because she is in one of the divisions most starved for contenders in the entire promotion. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
And that's a good point. The way she fights and how aggressive and you forget how old she is. Like I think of her as a young prospect, and she's not a prospect. She's in her prime right now.
yep, no, she's in her prime. In the UFC, she's only lost to Chikagian and both times there were decisions where she was at least competitive. So, I mean, she's two more fights away from a title shot. She's one more fight away from being close enough to the top of that phone list that like she probably needs to start staying near weight.
Yeah. And before we move on, we've got to address something. And me and Ben, we're going to touch on this very briefly because when you dig deep into these things, that they never go well. Andrea Lee's cornerman, who's also her boyfriend, who's also a UFC fighter, Tony Kelly. I didn't hear this. I'm doing stuff. I'm tweeting. When the fight ends. I'm not necessarily paying attention to like the girls hugging each other and saying stuff. Apparently, I don't know if it was Andrea Lee or someone in her corner complained about Araujo at one point, saying Araujo was holding the inside of her glove. She may have, she might not have. I didn't see it, but apparently Tony Kelly said that's what, and I might not have the exact words, so, but he said something to the point like that's what they do, the dirty Brazilians. That can be interpreted many, many ways. So all over Twitter, it was like the story of the night. It seemed like really, and the reason why I'm even reporting on this, like I didn't see it. I was trying to get people to send it to me so I could comment on it. I still haven't seen it, but like really good media members, credible guys, were talking about it. Gilbert Burns responded to it. Adrian Yanez, who's fighting Tony Kelly, is responding to it. Just Ben, take it away. Tell me your thoughts on it.
Okay, well, I mean, first to get the facts out of the way, I did watch a clip that was sent to me on Twitter. It is Tony Kelly. He does audibly say it. They're going to do stuff
Okay.
like that. Because they're dirty Brazilians. So, okay, facts aside, he did say it. Here, I think context does matter because
Okay.
if all you read was a headline that says Andrea Lee Cornerman refers to opponent's corner as dirty Brazilians in quotes, you're like, oh shit, that's not a good look. But then
No.
you listen to the actual quote in context. He's talking literally about fighting dirty. I'm not saying it's great,
Talking
but
about Tim Elliott style.
yeah, but it takes it to a whole. There's a whole different level of intent here. I mean, that's about as much as I want to say about it. Like, I'm
Yeah.
of the two of us, I am certainly the one that skews more liberal, more politically correct. I'm that guy, and I'm more than happy to stand up when I think something is happening in the sport that just isn't part of decent discourse or shouldn't be part of like a public facing business. This ain't it. And honestly, I want to give her a bit of a break because
Yeah.
if she's gone from dating Donnie Aaron, like a literal Nazi with swastikas tattooed on him, to a guy that just seems to be kind of a poorly spoken redneck, I call that a win.
Yeah. Well, that's so I have a lot to say and not a lot to say. So I'm like, I don't know how far I want to go with this. So based on her track record, she almost doesn't get a pass. They say, hey, you had this Nazi guy who admitted he was a Nazi, but I know he claimed that he kind of changed his ways and never got the tattoo taken off. It's just something like that's his opportunity to talk to kids about it. Or, I don't know, some poor ass excuse why he was telling them. But that's what he said. The whole point is like, based on her history, it's like that's not a good look. As far as Tony Kelly, like it's 2022, man. Like just be smart with your words. And if he meant it in just like they fight dirty, and Brazilians have been accused of that. I mean, they've with the juicing, with whatever.
Yeah. He had a valid point, and there were ways to make his point. Like,
if he said cheating Brazilians, we wouldn't be talking about this right now.
Yeah. Like,
if there's a follow-up interview and he says that, I'll take his word for it. The point is, and this is why, which sucks, some people will never give him the benefit of the doubt. When you get accused of being a racist, which is like as bad as it comes for things you can be accused of, that's gonna follow him. That's gonna always follow him.
Well, I mean, we'll see, like how he conducts himself going forward. Because the thing is, if this is like the only time something like this ever crops up, well, this is a fast-moving news cycle. We'll have forgot about it in 6 months. What'll happen is
like Cody Durden, and then he fights again. You're like, oh yeah, but like we stopped tweeting about Cody Durden too. I'll say this, like if there's a tweet from 3 years ago where he says something stupid, then man, we don't give the benefit of that. I don't know. I don't follow Tony Kelly like that well, just as far as there was so many people. I mean, it seemed like everybody was jumping to he's racist, this and that, and he very well maybe. I just hate it. I think we throw out the word race card. That's racist way too far. To me, it's the same way I look at steroids. Unless you have hard evidence, don't throw it out there because it's something that people can't shake. Once it's out there, you can never shake it. Anyways, I think we covered enough. We can't avoid it anymore. We have to talk about Michael Johnson and Alan Patrick.
I think at least for the evening, he gets the honorary middle name. Like, damn it, Michael fucking Johnson, for momentarily reminding us what it looks like when you are firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, so Michael Johnson beat up Alan Patrick's grandfather, his 90-year-old grandfather. The only thing that might be worse than Tony Kelly's comments was that friggin' bleached goatee. Like, dude, that was terrible. He looked like he was 90 years old.
Yeah. It didn't look blonde. It just made him look like an old man. It made him look like Denzel Washington in the Book of Eli, like that post-apocalyptic thing where he's like the blind man, like wandering through the desert. But yeah, it made him look like 60-year-old Denzel. Yeah.
I see the one of Samuel L. Jackson where he's like, I'd never seen the movie. I always see like the meme where he's got like the funny face and he's like all like old looking. I don't know what movie it's from.
Yeah, it's Black Snake Moan. Yeah.
What's it from?
Black Snake Moan is what it's called.
Oh, I never seen that movie.
Yeah. Oh, technical is going off here. Michael, Mr. Inconsistent Johnson, he's the guy you avoid betting on. Yeah, he is literally the most inconsistent fighter in UFC history. The difference between his high points and low points, I mean, we're talking about a guy who's below 500 in the UFC, and yet he's beaten, Dustin Poirier, Edson Barboza. Like, yeah, like Michael Johnson. But the thing is, tonight was a reminder of how good he is when he is firing on all cylinders. Because even though I thought he won the first round, I was like, this is exactly the kind of fight that Michael Johnson's going to find a way to lose. He's just going to walk into some silly shot and get like rung up by a 42-year-old guy that's like 3 times slower than he is, or he's going to fall into a submission, or he's just going to take the next 2 rounds off and then hold his hands up when he loses a split decision. But no.
it's so funny because everything you're saying, I was thinking, like he was fast, much faster than them. He was hitting them with big shots. He was beating him to the punch. Oh, what happened? He was just and responding everything Patrick threw. He was one step ahead of him. He was countering him when Patrick was throwing out some of the ugliest takedown attempts I've seen, just easily sharking him off. But I just kept thinking like Michael Johnson's gonna do something stupid. He's way up. He's gonna do something stupid. He never did. The one concern I have is like he just got a knockout and he was walking around the cage saying something like, "I'm back. Tell everybody, I'm coming for everybody," or something stupid. Like, I just sitting there thinking, I'm like, oh my god, did Michael Johnson just earn himself like 10 more fights in the UFC?
He did.
Like, is this what that's just happened? Like he wins by knockout and they just gave him like a 10-fight contract now.
They probably will. I mean, he fights for a reasonable amount. His fights are generally entertaining. He's willing to fight on short notice. He doesn't have a huge cut to 55. I mean, he's fought at 45 before. Yeah, he's going to become a company man. And I think he probably would have been cut if he'd lost tonight, but that ain't going to happen. And dude, the four-piece that he put down Patrick with, there aren't a lot of guys in the UFC. Like, he's one of the better pure boxers in the division. Like, his hands are fun to watch.
Ben's trying to sell me again on Michael Johnson.
It's because I've bought
Ben jumped back on.
I'm back on.
You're back in?
I just can't quit you, Michael Johnson. It's terrible.
I don't know who Michael Johnson's fighting next, but I'm taking that person.
And you're probably right.
Who's the other guy that I refuse to take? What should be that guy? Who's the other guy I said I won't take ever? I won't pick.
The tall, lanky grappler guy from the Monkey King.
Oh yeah. Levitt.
Yeah,
What's
Jordan
his first
Levitt.
name? Jordan Levitt. Yeah. Michael Johnson versus Jordan Levitt the next fight. That's what's gonna happen. And I'm gonna pick a draw. Speaking of company men, we go from company men to company women. It's Angela Hill take on Verna Jandiroba. I know I pronounced her name. Drake Riggs will tell me I pronounced her name wrong. This is exactly how I expected the fight. Just to me, it was Hill actually showed some improved grappling and still got mauled on the ground. It just I know we both picked Jandiroba, but was anybody taking Hill? Did anybody expect this fight to look any differently?
It's how I expected it to look. It was a very Angela Hill fight because you know what? She was never winning on the ground, but she was also never really in danger of being finished on the ground. She had well-schooled, had the right counters, good positioning, and just really kind of survived and held her own for most of 15 minutes on the ground against a former world champion and still managed to lose 30-27. Like, that's an Angela Hill fight for you. Like,
yeah. So Bass put on Reddit the picks were 66.7 for Hill. Yeah, I don't count Reddit. Like, I'm talking about the listeners here. I'm talking about hardcores. Reddit, they're making picks. They don't even know the people in the main event. They're just making random picks. Bass mentioned Angela Hill should retire. I don't know if she should retire. I definitely don't think she will retire. I got a question for you. It's pure guess, not what you do, but does the UFC cut her?
I actually don't think the UFC will. I bet she gets another fight.
Yeah, I don't think it's even in the realm of possibility.
I mean, she's lost 5 of her last 6, but before that she had won 3 in a row, and she's like a Sam Alvey that fights for like half the money.
Yeah, I learned nothing about either fighter in this fight. Jandiroba exactly what I expected, being a good wrestler, especially good grappler, especially good topside grappler, and Angel Hill, quick, athletic, but struggles with the wrestling, never changes the game plan, has moments of memory, not memory, what I'm looking for, just intelligence, like fight IQ, like lacks fight IQ at times. This is exactly who these fighters are. To me, this was probably the easiest fight in the entire card to pick.
Yes.
Before that, my Southern New Englander let me down as he took on Carlos Candelara, took on Tetsuri Taira. I think I
Tatsuro
said that
Taira,
correctly.
yeah, yeah, Taira.
Tyra, sorry. I apologize. Um, Tyra looked really, really good. He's 22 years old. He's a prospect from Japan. He's got a lot of hype. I don't remember someone coming from the Asian market with this much buzz in the UFC debut. And maybe I'm just living in the moment. Not like buzz, like there wasn't like people weren't going like, oh, make sure you turn in. But I mean, like people who are high on prospects, a lot of people were really excited to see his debut, and I don't think he disappointed at all.
No, I mean, I suppose if you expected him to just run over Candelario and tap him out in the first round with like something really exotic, you might have been disappointed. But I think that would be to discount how skilled Candelario is, because like you've spoken as a guy that's local to there that he has some issues.
I like Canelo.
Yeah, but like he has some issues and some limitations that don't even really show themselves on the tail of the tape necessarily. But he's a skilled guy, and he was physically bigger and stronger than Tyra, and still just had his hands full on the ground every second they were there.
Yeah, what was more impressed me is actually his feet. He was quick. He was landing some good shots. He was winning. He was winning the striking battle. He made Canelo have to grapple with him, and then I was really impressed with his like back takes and just like the little details that he was doing. Like one point, he had Canelo's back, and it looked like Canelo like had a hit. Had pushed him in the back, was trying to get shoulder in his back, kind of cut in the corner, and I love that. Taira like actually pushed his shoulder back where it's supposed to be and then re-scooted back in. Like very few guys, just a little attention to detail they did for a 22-year-old. I was really impressed.
I was impressed, but you know what? I think Alan Nascimento would have beaten him tonight.
I don't know. I don't hate that. I don't hate it. I don't know. Like that's such a tough one, but yeah, that's actually like it. Those are. I mean,
like Tyra looked young. He is clearly not into his full physical strength yet. Like I think most of the stuff he was doing to Candelario just flat out wouldn't have worked on Nascimento.
Backing up a fight, Dev says a lot of MMA handicappers I respect pick Hill. I was extremely confused. Dev, put those names out there because I want to know who actually picked Hill because I'm really surprised by that. I thought that was really. I mean, and I'm listening. I make wrong picks. I mean, shit, I won 5 and 6 tonight, so I'm not like when I say people out there, I'm just wondering who did, not trying to call them out saying I'm smarter than them. I did fucking terrible tonight, so I shouldn't be. I'm just curious, more curious, and
Yeah.
see if there's people that I know. And the speaking of handicappers, shout out to our sponsors, BetMGM. It's always good. You could have made a deposit, and you could have made a lot of money off of Andre Petrowski as he submitted Nick Maximoff in the first round. Petrowski to win was a huge underdog. Him by submission, I have no idea what his him by submission would have cashed. And him by submission in the first round, who knows? You would have been buying Sherdog.
Oh yeah, you could have been our boss.
He catch him in that anaconda.
Petrosky by submission was plus 1,200. Yeah.
Nice. Bobby Boucher mentioned Maximoff dropping down to 170 incoming. You mentioned that on the preview. One thing about the preview, we talked about Petrowski versus Maximoff. Like we both picked Maximoff, but both of us are saying like the odds were way off. Like yep. Petrowski's a real threat. Stylistically, that's a tough matchup. And I think he goes down to a point that you always make and why he was such a big favorite. I think is a really good point that you constantly make. The difference in buzz between an undefeated fighter and a guy who's one loss.
Yep. That they get a certain amount of buzz and it's not like it's not like I'm not subject to it. Like it's just a natural human thing. If you've never
Absolutely.
seen something happen, it's hard to imagine it happening. I always go back to Lyoto Machida. Like until somebody actually hit him cleanly, it was impossible to picture how somebody would even do it. Here, yeah, I said that I expected Maximov to win, but probably start looking for a drop to 170 soon. Like, he just seemed undersized, but none of that was the problem here. The problem was that Petrosky slapped on a real fast anaconda choke, and Maximov didn't react fast enough.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. But when you're sprawled out and a guy sprawled out on top of you, running a front headlock, which how he set up the anaconda,
Yeah.
he's a smaller guy. That's a lot of weight. If you're holding a guy up who Petrosky looks like a big middleweight too, so I think weight could be a factor in that situation.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
yeah.
I know, yeah. Like, I was shot under like guys heavier than me in wrestling practice and stuff, and had, you know, like one weight guy, he's wrestled at 133 in college, and I shoot in and on a 165 pounder. You feel the difference.
No, I agree. And even just like in terms of just biomechanics, you look at the arms on Petrosky, it sounds miserable for him to have you in a front headlock. Just the way
Yeah,
he's
that's a
built.
good point.
Kind of like the way that uh, OSP used to get all those shoulder chokes. It's like, look at the guy's shoulders. When he is on you like that, like, there is no room. Like, his delts and lats are like this. Also, he's so terrifying that people used to just hold on to guillotines way too long because they didn't want him to just sit up in their guard and punch their face off. Like, there's a certain amount of just sheer, like, physical mechanics to this.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. So nice win for Petrosky. Little extreme saying he's the best grappler in the middleweight division. You might want to change it to best wrestler. Like, I don't know if he's the
Well,
best grappler.
he said wrestler.
Oh, did he say? Okay, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I think because people were saying that he's the best grappler. I think I saw Brian Battle saying like, "Oh, I didn't know I submitted the best grappler in the middleweight division." Kyle mentioned Adolfo Vieira is in that division. We would really have to look at who's in the UFC's middleweight division, see if he's the best wrestler. But back to, as we mentioned, the one loss is a point we always like to mention. You just look how Khabib Nurmagomedov is viewed compared to Alex Volkanovski.
Yep.
Because Volkanovski lost one meaningless fight a long time ago when he was up, like, what'd you say, up two weight classes?
Yeah,
He's
he's fighting at 170. You know,
yeah,
5'6", kind of thick around the middle, welterweight, fighting in a cage, in a ring too. Like, I've seen the fight.
Yeah.
They were fighting in a boxing ring.
Yeah, and let's not mention that, like, Volkanovski's actually a short featherweight.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
5'6". Yeah.
He's a trim. So you guys have it. We've covered all 11 fights. Let's do the fun stuff. I got 2 on my cut list.
You got 2? You know what? Let me make sure that I don't misspeak here.
And guys, the way we do the cut list, if you haven't watched the show before, both me and Ben, we say who the UFC should get rid of. Obviously, that's a negative approach, but it also opens the door for other people. It's obviously so many roster spots. We throw it out to the chat. Guys, tell us who you would be cutting today. First thing I'd be cutting is those handicappers that Dev follows. Cut those guys. But I mean, I should get cut too, but
I got
2. All right, so the way we do it,
do I have 4?
Both me. Oh, Ben has 4. So if both me and Ben have the same person on the list, we officially invite them for the UFC to cut them. But if they're not on both of our lists, then they do not get cut. So Ben has 4. I only have 2. So that right away is saving.
I have 3. One of them gets a
reprieve. Okay, Ben has 3. So one of them is going to be saved. So give me your first person that you're cutting.
First person that I'm cutting is Angela Hill. She has lost 5 of 6.
Okay. I am not cutting Angela Hill. I'm keeping her. I thought about it, in that Sam Alvey, Donald Cerrone, always won the fight all the time, gets a little bit more leeway, and she's lost to some really good people. She hasn't lost any scrubs.
Okay.
Petrosky listens to Avenged Sevenfold. That's what they said. They said that he sounds like he listens to that.
He probably does.
I have no idea what the hell that means.
It's a metal band, like kind of a.
Okay, I knew you knew it.
Metal, yeah.
I knew you would know what that means. I'm not cool enough to know what that means. Or is that cool or not cool?
You're not less cool for not knowing who Avenged Sevenfold are. I'm not a fan.
Okay.
Uh, I
All
am
right. So who's
cutting
the other ones?
Frank Camacho, has lost 5 of 6. And
Oh
while
God,
they're mostly
Frank
against,
Camacho. I'm cutting.
yeah, I mean, they're
I
mostly
have
against good
three.
fighters,
Yeah, I have
like
three. I did not put Frank Camacho on my list, but yes, I would cut Frank Camacho. So we have an agreement there.
Alan Patrick is 0-3, 0-3 with one no contest in his last 4, and the one no contest he was getting beat up too. Like, if
Yep.
not for an eye poke, he'd
I
be 0-4 in his last 4.
I am in agreement. I am cutting Alan Patrick. So
I
that's
gave
it. That's
I
your
gave a
list, right?
reprieve to Louis Smolka. I did not put Louis Smolka on my list.
All right. So I had three and you had three. I did have Lewis Smoker on my list. He lost 4 out of 6, 2 in a row. So Lewis Smoker saved by Ben. I saved Angela Hill, but we have agreed on Alan Patrick and Frank Camacho. I'm looking at the listeners. Um, Dev's cutting petroleum. No. um, Bass cuts Hill and Smoka. Just floating through. I love that name. Cuts Alan Patrick and Frank Camacho.
Yeah.
Bass, Patrick, and Camacho. So that's 4. So Bass is in a good mood of cutting people. There's a discussion over Avenged Sevenfold. Technical Wealth cuts Smolka, Camacho, Patrick. Hill survives
She's not
because
bad.
she's not bad. She's not bad, but she's not good either. Dev cuts Alan Patrick, Frank Camacho, Hill, and Smoka. So a lot of cuts. Kyle Lahi, Patrick, Jake the Flake, Camacho. Sorry. I'm sorry. I messed that up. I'm sorry. Camacho was the third person.
Mm-hmm.
Jake the Flake. Who's Jake?
Hadley. Jake
Who?
Hadley.
He's cutting Hadley.
I think he's
Wow.
joking.
Okay.
But
All right. He might be joking. Tappa Snap cuts Hill, Patrick, and Camacho. So the Bulls and the Bears. The Bulls and the Bears are a stock market reference. We do it 3, 2, 1. So we pick up to 3 people. You want to be on the Bulls list. That's when a stock is going good. You don't want to be on a Bears list. That's when stock is going down. We'll start with the Bears. We'll keep it negative. Ben, I'll go first. Is that okay?
Go for it.
All right. My number 3 is Nick Maximoff. And I'm still high on him. He got caught. The reason why it's the stock, it's the perception. We talked about being undefeated compared to having one loss, being quickly submitted when you're a big favorite. Wait to see how people react and move forward. Wait to see how people view him. His stock went way down. My number 2, Alexander Rakic. He blew out his leg. Regardless, he took an L and blew out his leg. He's going to be stuffed way down the list. Who knows when he's going to fight again? Obviously, not a good time for Alexander Rakic. And my number 1, we gave him a pass. But we gave him a possible pass. But just in general, too many people are not going to give him a pass. Tony Kelly stock it went way down. Not a good night for Tony Kelly. Let's see your Bears.
Okay, my Bears. Ion Kudalaba. He was probably the more skilled fighter in the co-main event. He was the favored fighter in the co-main event. He was winning the fight, and he found a way to lose it. And even in the light heavyweight division, that sets him back a little ways. This was a fight that kind of put the winner sneaky high, up into the edge of the rankings, and he just blew a fight that he was winning. I won't. Well, actually, yeah. Number 2, Jake Hadley. He'll bounce back from this, or at least he'll have the chance to bounce back from this. I mean, he could probably lose 3 in a row before being even in danger of being cut. Like, Dana White likes his vibe. He's an exciting guy most of the time when he fights. But this laid bare some basic problems with his game that, even if you still think he has a bunch of upside, make you think twice about him and even the borderline top 15 flyweights. Because most of them are not dummies on the ground. So you're like, okay, what does he do to beat your Howley and Paivas that are kind of on the outside of the rankings looking in. And my number one is, I mean, you already mentioned Rakic, so I'll just say basically everybody involved in the main event, because this was not good for Blachowicz either. He is 39 years old. He
Yeah,
has a limited amount of time to get back into the title picture. Almost the worst thing that could happen to him is a victory that did not seriously help his case for a title shot. It's almost the same as Leon Edwards poking Bilal Muhammad in the eye, for a no contest when they fought. What he needed was
yeah, that's a
just
good
a
point.
win to make his case for a title shot even more undeniable. Instead, he gets, yeah, it's a win, and yeah, it's going to go down as a TKO in his record. But you and I talked about it off the top. He didn't get to do anything that had us immediately clamoring for an immediate title shot. So even though he won, he kind of lost in victory.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like that one. I'll read some of the listeners. Tap a Snap Bears are Andrew Lee in a corner, Nick Maximoff and Ian Kutalaba. Dev goes fishing. Rakic knee. Spouses in the corner. Kyle Lahi, Rakic knee. His knee ligaments. Heaven. Significant other in the corner. Stockton fighters taking the L. Bobby Boucher, Rakic, Hadley, and Maximoff. Dev goes fishing. Rakic knee. Spouses in the corner in women's MMA. That fool Maximoff, not a fan. Uh, I'll save Bass's bull for a minute. Bear, UFC claiming to have the best competition when we just saw minimum 3 cans get crushed tonight live. I don't know who he's claiming has the best competition. Tapper Snap goes still losing half of his fights and ain't killing an MFer yet. I think he's talking about he must be talking about Michael Johnson. Techno Wealth says Bears, Raucous, Kudalaba with the fastest tap ever. That was a fast tap. Lee, besides boyfriend choices, her cardio, ground game sucks. That's a good point. The corner takes away some of the blame on her. Like it takes away a little bit of that. James Scott goes Rakic, Hadley, and Maximoff. Kailahi.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's go to the Bulls. So now these are who had a good night. You want to be on this. Kyle, Ben, start it up.
Okay. Since I I already had one person on my Bears list who was a Bear in victory, I will give a Bull in defeat as well, because Amanda Hebus, regardless of how you scored her fight against Caitlin Chukagian, just showed that she can absolutely hang with and arguably beat the undisputed number 2 woman in the division above hers. So all of a sudden, she has options open. Options are always
Yeah,
good.
that's a good point.
So,
That's a good point.
Amanda Hebus, probably made some fans tonight. I mean, I think most of the hardcores really like her anyway. And man,
How can you not?
if there's something that the strawweight division has that the flyweight division often lacks, it is exciting fights. Caitlin Chukagian is part of that problem. So the fact that Amanda Hebus pulled an exciting fight out of her, good night for Amanda Hebus, even if she didn't get that extra, didn't get the win.
We gotta
Number
have a
2,
fight. We gotta have a fight. Holly Holm and Logan Storley next.
there we go.
In fairness, Logan Storley, his fight with what's his name, Gracie. I can't think of his first name.
Neiman.
Neiman Gracie. I was there live. That was a fantastic fight.
Yeah.
All right, Karen.
Number 2, Michael Johnson. His back was up against the wall. If he had lost, he would absolutely have been on my cut list. Hell, if he'd had a draw with Patrick, he would have been on my cut list. Instead, he won, and not only did he win, but he just snuck up and made me care about his next fight again. And for me, who I watch a lot of fights and it's hard to force myself to care about them, the fact that he even got me to kind of underline his next fight on my calendar, that says a lot. I'm over. I thought I was over believing in Michael Johnson, but now I'm like, well, crap. That's right. He can do that sometimes. Number 1, Alan Nascimento. We mentioned the automatic shine that an undefeated prospect gets. A 30-year-old who comes to the UFC with a 24-5 record is just another dude until he does something to stand out. Alan Nascimento is off to a good start there. The fact that it shouldn't matter, but it does matter and it helps. He speaks good English. He
Mm-hmm.
is a kind of entertaining, energetic guy. He has the Charles the Bronx Oliveira connection. String together a couple more wins, and all of a sudden, you're a person of interest instead of just another person in this division.
Yeah. Speaking of your Bulls, Bass agrees with you on Michael Johnson, and he said because, and this is an extremely good point, because he would have been at 500 if he lost. So
Oh no, he's below. Well, he would have been 500 as a professional fighter. He's below 500 in the UFC, and he still is.
yeah, as a professional fighter,
Yeah, he's like
he would
12
have.
and 14 in the UFC or something. Yeah.
So that's a couple other Bulls. Let's see. Bobby Boucher goes Michael Johnson, Taira, and Petrowski. I agree with all three of those are good ones. Tapper Snap, Jan Blachowicz thought he looked. Oh, sorry, this it's scrolling on me. Thought he looked good. Valentina Verhaelen, William Gatekeeper, and Caitlin Chikagian. James Scott, not too, not anybody for them, but James Scott is not liking this card. I only give it a C minus. He's James Scott's a tough critic. Technical wealth. Taylor looked good. Spawn with the best push off. Yeah, that's a good point. Best push off, fastest tap ever. He was making Chikagian fight interesting, and Petrowski making betting great again. Yeah. A lot of people who bet on Petrowski had a great night. Dev goes Michael fucking Johnson. Gives Michael the fucking nickname.
Just for the night.
Yeah, just for the night. Okay. Caitlin Chikagian have a fun fight. Agrees with you on Nascimento. Let's see. I think that's all of them. I'll give mine. My number 3 is Taira, 22 years old, undefeated, getting all that hype, coming in from Japan. A lot of people are excited. He had a really good showing. Carries a lot of pressure because there's a lot of people seen the hardcores who are excited to him, but also a country that they mentioned, Japan has never had a champion in the UFC. They're throwing the champion line out there already. His stock went up.
Yep.
My number 2 is a team, and this is kind of like a 2-event thing going, but how about Diego Lima shootbox team? As you mentioned, you're going crazy over Nascimento. He was cornered by Charles Oliveira. Nice to see the champion, or former champion, but most of us still consider him the champion. 1 week later, cornering his teammate, being there for the cutting weight and everything. That team's on fire. So that's my number 2. But my number 1 is actually another team that got mentioned in the chat, and I didn't mention this because they were putting number 1 on my Bulls. I didn't even know this stat. I've been backing this team for a while. The Renzo Gracie Philly team, also known as the Daniel Gracie Philly team. This team is 14-0 in the UFC. That's incredible. So they're my number 1 Bulls. Like, I hope this turns into like a Goldberg streak.
7 of them are Sean Brady, of course, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a good run. And I know Jeremiah Wells has a couple wins in there. Obviously, Petrowski has some wins. Pat Sabatini has some wins. I don't know. I guess they're not counting Paul Felder. I guess that wasn't his main team.
He's a Rufus Sport guy.
Yeah, but like Felder trained with them too. But 14-0. Like let's turn this to a goal. Like I want the next fight. Like Jeremiah Wells walking out coming out from the locker room with the blowing smoke through his nostrils as he's walking out. Like let's get this streak going. Like or turn it into like Undertaker's WrestleMania thing or Moneyball with the Brad Pitt. Like let's make this into something. The 14-0, that's impressive. So shout out to Renzo Gracie Philly team.
I mean, like seriously, that's a better streak of that kind than we've seen since Dwayne Ludwig took over at Team Alpha Male. Because I know they won like their first 11 or 12 fights after he took over there.
That's a good run. But
before DJ splattered Benavidez. Yeah.
You know what they should do to make it keep going? Like just turn down fights that are like tough fights. Just take easy fights. Like Sean Brady's next fight should be like Brian Barberino. Like he got into it with like Stephen Thompson. And Stephen Thompson told Dustin Poirier to fight him. He's like, no, how about you fight me? And let the division move on. Like no, like keep the streak going, Sean. Go fight Brian Barberino or go fight
Mike Jackson. He's right. He'll take.
Yeah, go fight Mike Jackson. So, Anyways, those are my bulls. Let's get to the grade because the grades are kind of like, so people were talking about the grades early in the chat. Grades were kind of a little all over the place. What was your grade for the card?
C minus.
Okay.
The main event was just a massive disappointment. It
Yeah.
takes a lot to turn something like that around, and just the rest of it wasn't that good. So yeah, it's a C minus.
Yeah, I'm actually going C plus. The reason why I'm going C plus is I thought the prelims was awesome. There's a lot of good stoppages. Michael Johnson, like even though I didn't pick him, like that was a fun moment. Caitlin, I think maybe because Caitlin Chikagian, I was like expecting a like F out of that fight, and then to put like just scoring that fight alone, I'd probably give it like a minus or something like that. So I was feeling so good. I was probably up to the main event. I was feeling like a B plus. I was happy, and then the main event was so bad that it pulled me down to I give it a good passing grade still. A C. You know, even though knee injury was not, I was thinking like the story, even though the knee injury wasn't fun, it still gave us something to talk about than if it was like a 50-45 scorecard for Blachowicz or something like that. We wouldn't have as much to talk about. So I'll give it a C plus. The hardest one is shout out to the chat. It's 2:40 in the morning and guys are chatting it up. And a lot of times when we have these late shows for a fight night, it's not as jumping, but a lot of people watching. We have a lot of people talking. And if you're watching and you're not jumping the chat, guys, jump in the chat, man. Like I think me and Ben are pretty friendly. I think everyone in there is pretty friendly. So if you're gonna watch, you might as well chat it up with guys. Tell us your opinions on the fights. Who's your listener of the evening?
I kind of like Kyle Lawheed for the just
He's always
strong
great.
performance, start to finish. It was a good night for him. Got in some good one-liners. Got in some interesting actual takes on things. I mean, a tough field this time. Technical Wealth was in early and just dropping bombs
Oh yeah,
often. Good to see Bobby Boucher back. Boss is like our OG. Like I think Boss is like literally our
absolutely.
first listener who like we
Our
started
only
to
listener.
recognize by
Yeah.
name. Like he's in the KB Buller wing of the Shillen and Duffy Show Hall of Fame. But for tonight, I think it's going to be Kyle.
Yeah, I come out like Dev goes fishing. Like he was on his game today,
Yeah.
as always. Scott McCree is always one of my favorites. Uh, High Low 100 was killing me with some lines. He was really great, but the prop sniper is always great. He threw some money to Sherdog, which always great. I almost took him for that, but I don't want to think it.
Yeah.
I'm going to bribe people to pay it. So I'm going to go with Technical Wealth. He has some really funny lines. So I'm going to go with Technical Wealth, but overall, just absolutely great showing. I love the show, and honestly, the listeners make it the reason why I love it so much. Plus, I love talking to you too, Ben. But
No.
so there you guys have it. We've covered all the fights. Me and Ben are back Monday morning.
Yep.
Holly Holm, Ketlin Vieira card. We've already taped it. So if you're disappointed that you didn't get all the kias from Caitlin Chikagian this fight, well, we got Holly Holm next week. So
yes, hopefully.
And just for the record, I mentioned Caitlin Chikagian because we had no idea. We taped it before the fight. I said about how terrible the fight was. Actually, a fantastic fight.
Yeah.
By Caitlin Chikagian. So ignore that part.
But I mean, tune in. There will be Tabitha Ricci one-liners aplenty. Don't you worry. Anything else before we log off here?
No, that's it, guys. So see you guys next week.
And the stream is done.